Johanna Pinther Kane, and it is a genuine pleasure to see you all here this afternoon. Ladies first, I have a question for you. How many of you have voted in a national election? Wonderful, wonderful. And may I proudly say to you, you are welcome. You are most welcome. Well, 100 years ago, there were two women's reform movements going on. The women's suffrage movement and the women's rights movement, both wanting social and economic changes for women. The rights movement sought equal property and political rights, and the suffrage movement, for which I am known, wanted to give women the right to vote. I was a suffragette and participated in the national movement in order to give women that right. 200 brave suffragettes and I marched on the California State Republican Convention in order to induce the delegates to attempt to change their... Oh, I am so sorry. Where are my manners? There are some people say that I tend to prattle on too much when I talk about women's rights. So, in deference to them, I shall mind my manners and start at the beginning. I was born in Marysville in 1861 of German immigrant parents. My father, George Clausanius, was a merchant, and my mother, Augusta, was a housekeeper. By the time I was 6 years old, my father had been widowed. He then remarried, and we all moved to San Francisco, and that's where I grew up. I had a gift for music and even taught music lessons for a while. I was quite well read, and as they would say, I was pretty street smart, but I did not have a formal education to speak of. I was married 3 times, the first time at age 18, which gave me my only child, a son by the name of Rudolph. My second marriage was to businessman Theodore Pinter in 1906. Just 6 months after the great San Francisco earthquake. Now, would you believe that that horrible disaster actually helped to launch the women's suffrage movement here on the West Coast? Well, the earthquake destroyed almost the entire city of San Francisco, leaving about 250,000 people without their homes, half of whom rebuilt right within the city, and the other half moved outside of the city, including myself, where we formed new communities. These new communities gave civic-minded women, such as myself, the opportunity to work together. We formed art leagues and outdoor improvement associations. We focused on improving utilities and community services. We built libraries, we built schools, and even funded fire departments. It was these small civic groups that attracted smart and strong-willed women at a time when they were growing quite impatient with gender inequality. And it was that frustration which served as the incubator for the women's suffrage movement. I organized the San Francisco Women's Club and later became involved with the California Equal Suffrage Association, CESA. We called it CESA. And that's why I'm standing before you here today. 1908. The Republicans had just announced that they would hold their California State Convention in the city of Oakland. Well, we leaders of CESA figured that these men needed some serious encouragement in order to support a constitutional amendment to give women the right to vote. So, we came up with a plan. We planned to march on their cigar-chomping political confab in order to convince them of the wisdom of our rights. And our plan got a lot of attention, too. Yes, there had been another women's march the previous year in London. But a women's march here in America? That was unheard of. The newspapers predicted that we would be a violent, angry mob of militants. Frankly, the only thing that those men needed to fear was the strength of our conviction and our yellow badges declaring votes for women. Our march was orderly. Our march was dignified. The San Francisco Chronicle newspaper the next day had a photograph of me, on the front page, waving the silk CISA banner that I had sewn, designed, and embroidered just for the occasion. 200 determined suffragettes marching behind me. We marched for more than a mile, side by side, and in close formation. After all, we wanted to present a serious and organized image to our growing movement. We arrived at the convention hall and took over almost the entire second floor gallery seating. We flaunted our CISA banner over the heads of the statesmen down below. And then, after several patronizing meetings with the conventioneers, we learned that they would refuse to place suffrage on their platform. Was this a failure? The decision angered us. The decision frustrated us. But we did not deem it a failure. After all, we did present a strong first impression to those Republican statesmen and to all of America. Throughout my life, I supported the suffragettes. But understand that I not only gave women the right to vote, I also gave women the strength and the encouragement to realize that they no longer had to sit at home quietly and ladylike. Honestly, I think that our little women's march in Oakland was a lot like the San Francisco earthquake, because it shook things up. It destroyed societal norms. And from that emerged a new woman with a new sense of power and confidence, knowing that she could help rebuild a new society much stronger than the one that had been before. Our suffrage campaign witnessed the passage of the 19th Amendment in 1919. And I am proud to say that I had a vital role in seeing that historic moment come to fruition. So, you're probably wondering how I ended up in Placerville. Well, following the divorce from my husband, Theodore Pinther, in 1914, I moved here to El Dorado County, where we had owned property. I became a property owner, women's rights. I married a farmer from Coloma by the name of Henry Kane. Henry and I lived in Coloma and the town of El Dorado until 1938. When I died at the age of 77. The message that I would like to have you take away today is to own your history. If you own your history, you can own your future. And ladies, always remember to vote. Thousands of us, like myself, worked, fought long and hard in order to give you that right. And I thank you for allowing me to share my story with you today.